What I'm about to tell you is the reason I still cover the little camera on my laptop, even when it's shut. For almost a month, I thought I was just being paranoid. A noise in the wall, a light left on, a neighbor who always seemed to be outside the same time as me. Nothing you could call the police over, nothing you could even explain without sounding unhinged. But by the end of this, you'll know why my neighbor always knew when to say good morning, why my bathroom fan turned on by itself at night, and how I found out someone had been watching me from 6 feet away without ever stepping inside my apartment. My name is Jenna. I was 19 when this happened, living alone for the first time in a small apartment building in North Connecticut. I'd moved there because it was cheap, close to my community college, and only 15 minutes from the diner where I worked closing shifts. The building had 8 units, 4 upstairs, 4 downstairs. Nothing fancy. Tan sidings, cracked parking lot, outdoor stairs that shook when you walked on them. My apartment was 4B, second floor, far end of the hallway. The unit next to mine was 4A. That's where my neighbor lived. His name was Patrick. He was probably in his early 30s. Not young, not old, just a normal looking guy with short brown hair, glasses, and the kind of work clothes that made him look like he fixed copy machines or installed the internet. He drove a gray hatchback and kept a folded sunshade in his windshield even in the winter. He was polite, but not overly friendly. He'd say good morning if we crossed paths. He'd hold the downstairs door if I was carrying groceries. Once, he helped me drag a heavy box up the stairs after I ordered a desk online. That's part of why I didn't suspect him. Nothing about him felt creepy at first. If anything, I was relieved I had a quiet neighbor. The woman below me screamed at game shows. The guy across the lot warmed his motorcycle at 6 in the morning. Patrick barely made a sound. The first thing I noticed was the bathroom fan. It was one of those old fans that sounded like a lawnmower trapped in the ceiling. I hated it, so I never used it unless I showered. One night, I got home from work around 12:30 p.m., exhausted and smelling like coffee grease. I took a shower, turned off the fan, brushed my teeth, and went to bed. Around 3 a.m. in the morning, I woke up to the fan running. I remember lying there for a few seconds, trying to figure out what I was hearing. Then I got up and walked into the bathroom. The switch was off, but the fan was running. I flipped the switch up and down a couple times. Nothing changed. Then after maybe 10 seconds, it shut off on its own. I told myself it was electrical. Old building, bad wiring, not my problem. The next morning, I mentioned it to the property manager before I left the building. She barely looked up from her desk and said moisture sensors sometimes do that. I didn't know bathroom fans had moisture sensors. She sounded so confident, I just accepted it. A few days later, something else happened. I was leaving for class and realized I couldn't find my student ID. I checked my backpack, my jacket, my kitchen counter, everywhere. Eventually, I found it on the bedroom windsill. That was weird because I never put anything there. The window faced the back of the property where there was nothing but a narrow strip of grass, a chain link fence, and a drainage ditch. I figured I must have set it there without thinking. The next week, my laptop started opening with the camera light on. Not every time, maybe twice. I'd flip it open to check homework, and a tiny green light would already be glowing. The first time I assumed the video app had opened in the background. The second time, I actually got nervous enough to reset it and change a bunch of my passwords. Still nothing major happened. That's what made it so easy to ignore. Nothing crazy. There were no footsteps outside of my door, no notes, no call, no shadow in the window, just little things. The bathroom fan switched on after midnight, my laptop camera light, the feeling that my apartment was slightly different when I got home, but never different enough to point to one thing. Then Patrick started making comments that seemed normal until they didn't. One morning he passed me on the stairs and said, "Rough night." I laughed and said, "Always." He said, Yeah, I heard you were up late. At the time, I thought he meant he heard me coming home from work. The stairs were loud. The door struck. So it made sense that way. Another time, I was taking the trash out, and he said, "That diner must be going through a lot of whipped cream." I had brought home a messed up milkshake the night before and spilled some on my uniform. I assume he saw the stain when I came in. That's how these things work. You explain them because the alternative is just way too uncomfortable. The first thing I couldn't explain happened on Sunday. I had the day off, so I slept late. Around noon, I made eggs, opened the kitchen window because I burnt the toast, and sat on the floor putting together that stupid desk Patrick had helped me carry up. Halfway through, I realized one of the screws was missing. I checked the box, checked the carpet, checked under the couch. Nothing. I got annoyed and gave up. The next morning, when I opened the door to leave for work, there was a tiny plastic bag on the ground. Inside was the exact missing screw. I assumed it had fallen out in the hallway when we carried the box in, and Patrick or someone else found it. That was the obvious answer, but the thing that left me confused was where he left it. Not by the box in the hallway, not by the stairs, right in front of my door, as if someone knew exactly what I had been looking for. That's when I called my friend Kayla. Kayla was 21, worked security at a hospital, and with her experience, I expected her to have some knowledge to help. She told me not to panic, but also not ignore it. Her first question was whether I had a carbon monoxide detector on. I did. Her second question was whether I checked for hidden cameras. I laughed because it sounded ludicrous. Then she said, "Just look, you'll feel better after." So that night, I walked through my apartment with my phone flashlight on, checking smoke detectors, vents, outlets, anything that looked weird. I didn't find a camera, but I did find something else in the bathroom. Above the fan cover, tucked into the corner where the ceiling met the wall, was a small gap in the paint, like someone had removed the cover before and not lined it back perfectly. I stood on the toilet, pulled the cover down, and almost dropped it. There were no cameras inside, just wires. A lot more wires than a bathroom fan should have. One thin black cable ran upwards towards a drilled hole in the ceiling. I didn't touch it. I took a picture and sent it to Kayla. She told me to leave and call maintenance from somewhere else. I stayed at her apartment that night. The next day, Mrs. Keene sent a maintenance guy named Rob to check it out. He came in, pulled the fan cover down, then went quiet. He tugged on the black wire once, gently, and looked towards the wall I shared with Patrick. Rob asked, "Who lives next door?" I told him. He didn't say anything else. He walked outside, went into Patrick's unit with a master key, and came back 5 minutes later looking pale. Mrs. Keene called the police after that. I don't know what they found yet. Nobody would tell me at first. I sat in Kayla's car across the lot and watched 2 police officers go in out of Patrick's apartment carrying plastic evidence bags. Patrick wasn't home. His gray hatchback was gone. When one officer came over to talk to me, he asked me questions that made my stomach go weak. Did I ever video chat from my bedroom? Did I ever use my laptop in the bathroom? Did Patrick have access to my Wi-Fi? Had I ever noticed the bathroom fan turning on by itself? That's when I knew. Not everything, but enough. Later, Kayla's cousin, who worked dispatch for the county, told her what they believed they found. I can't prove every detail because no one handed me the full report, but I believe it because it matched too many things. Patrick had ran a cable from my bathroom fan through a shared attic space into his apartment. He installed a tiny camera behind the fan grill, angled towards the bathroom mirror reflection, so he could see every part of my bedroom doorway. That was bad enough, but the laptop was worse. When he helped me carry the desk up the stairs, he had asked if I wanted help connecting my computer to the Wi-Fi. I'd said yes because the router password was long and I was tired. He had typed it in for me. Apparently, he used that moment to connect my laptop to a remote access program. That's how he knew about the missing screw. That's how he knew I was up late. That's how he knew I spilt something on my uniform. Not from the hallway, from my own computer. They found folders on his desktop labeled by dates, screenshots, short clips, audio recordings. Nothing violent. Nothing you could dramatize in the movie. Just my life. Me eating cereal at midnight. Me crying after a bad phone call with my mom. Me sitting on the floor trying to build a desk. Me walking past the bathroom mirror in a towel. Normal moments. Private moments. That's what this story solves. My neighbor wasn't obviously stalking me because he didn't need to be obvious. He didn't stand outside my window. He didn't follow me home. He didn't leave threatening messages. He made himself useful once, got access to my laptop, and used an old shared attic to run one wire 6 feet through the ceiling. That's all it took. Patrick was arrested 3 days later at his brother's house in Indiana. I moved out before the week had ended. I'm 22 now. I've lived in 2 places since. Checked events, checked cameras. I don't let my neighbors help me set up anything that connects to my internet. People always ask what the creepiest part was. It wasn't the cameras. It wasn't the folders. It was remembering all the casual little comments and realizing he had been testing what he could say out loud.